film begins by showing a house where a badly decomposed corpse is being placed in a body bag. Meanwhile, a man named Leo takes notes while his partner, Elvis, who is sensitive to the sight of organs and blood, becomes nauseous and has been doing almost nothing because of it. Leo busies himself scrubbing the floor clean and asks Elvis, still feeling queasy, to bring him a bucket. Leo seems entirely unbothered by his partner's discomfort and keeps working until he needs a bottle of cleaning fluid. Suddenly, a phone rings, and Elvis has to help hold it. Unfortunately, at the same moment, Elvis accidentally glances at the pool of blood, making him nauseous again, and he drops Leo's phone. After the call ends, Leo lets Elvis take a break, seeing that he desperately needs it. The scene then shifts to years earlier in a distant, snowy winter, where a man finds an abandoned baby in the forest. This discovery leaves him wondering if taking the baby is the right choice. Back to Leo and Elvis, the two cleaners now head to a cabin by the lake. Elvis sighs, relaxing as he sways slightly, admitting that he's letting the wind blow over him. Leo tells Elvis, reporting that the elderly man found in the body bag was the cabin owner and had passed away some time ago, with wild animals having dragged his body around. Leo explains that their colleague, Einar, discovered half of the man's body, while Leo and Elvis found the other half. Leo thanks Elvis for stepping in to cover for Einar, but Elvis brushes it off, saying it's no big deal, as he was out of work himself. They then resume working, with Leo finding bones while Elvis takes belongings out of the cabin. A call comes in from a woman named Catherine, and Leo notices a young girl in the wallpaper on Elvis's phone. He congratulates Elvis and asks about the girl, who is revealed to be Elin, Elvis's niece whom he adopted. A short while later, Elvis calls Leo over to the cabin after discovering a hidden corridor. Cautiously, Leo refuses to enter and prefers to leave that task to Einar. However, Elvis defies him, venturing inside. After finding a staircase, he uses his flashlight to look around and discovers a wooden door. While Leo turns on the lights, Elvis tries to figure out what's behind the door by pressing his ear against it and listening. He asks Leo to join him, but Leo hesitates again. Elvis pushes the door open and steps into a dark room filled with expired canned food and jars containing unknown liquids. After investigating further, they suspect someone may have been living there. Leo then enters the room, turning on a light and warning Elvis not to touch anything. Yet, once again, Elvis ignores him and picks up an encyclopedia. While Leo contacts headquarters, Elvis finds another door and without hesitation steps into a room displaying anatomical illustrations. A moment later, Leo suggests they should leave, but curiosity grips them. When the lights come on, they see pages of notes and illustrations plastered all over the walls. Suddenly, a faint sound indicates that something is active, followed by a click on a tape recorder. The sudden ringing of Elvis's phone startles him. Leo receives instructions over the call that they must leave the room without touching anything. Overcome with curiosity, however, Elvis presses random buttons on the recorder, which produces a static sound. He rewinds the tape further, examining the room as he listens. When the recording resumes, Elvis hears the shaky voice of someone, followed by the calm voice of a man trying to reassure them. Elvis listens intently as the recording continues, leading to a shocking sound. Then, noticing the bathtub vibrating slightly, Elvis begins to back away cautiously. At the same moment, Leo informs him that their colleagues will arrive soon. Elvis, still distracted, forces Leo to repeat his words until he finally acknowledges them. Suddenly, a mysterious woman appears from the bathtub, collapsing weakly. Elvis, frozen in fear, stands paralyzed as Leo enters the room to assess the situation. Leo searches the cabin while Elvis, worried, suggests taking the woman to the hospital as her body trembles. Leo refuses, assuring him that trained professionals will arrive soon to handle the situation. Still wanting to do something, Elvis tries checking a few tubes, suspecting that the unfortunate woman might be a victim of experiments. Feeling sorry for her, Elvis asks if Leo has found anything to keep her warm. A short while later, when Leo returns to the room with a jacket, he finds that the woman has taken Elvis captive. Leo attempts to negotiate by introducing himself and offering her the jacket he found. As the two men exit the room, The woman begins wandering around as if inspecting something. Leo and Elvis keep a close eye on her as she approaches cautiously and picks up a can of expired food. Noticing that she's hungry, Leo decides to get some fresh food and drinks. Although Elvis admits he's afraid to be left alone, Leo gives him a blank look as if to say, "I warned you." Despite his initial fear, Elvis cautiously moves closer to the woman, watching her as she devours the food. On a nearby table, Elvis finds several tapes labeled Thale. When he plays one, the woman reacts, suggesting that Thale might be her name. Thale stares at Elvis as he plays one of the tapes. She approaches the tape recorder, whimpering while disrupting it. Meanwhile, Leo returns to the car to take some pills and make a call. He senses movement around him, but realizes he's entirely alone. Back with Elvis, he's still playing the tape while Thale watches silently. Shortly afterward, a man's voice on the tape begins explaining that she grew up differently from her sister, possibly due to something that happened early in her life. Thale suddenly stands up and walks away. Realizing that she's gone, Elvis searches for her, following a soft singing voice that leads him to a cozy room. Thale continues her song while looking at Elvis, who finds a horseshoe on the wall and wonders aloud if it belongs to her. Thale quickly grabs it, and Elvis decides to approach her, sharing her song and stories, hoping she might one day sing it with his niece, Elin. When Elvis asks how long Thale has lived in the house, she suddenly touches him, and a series of memories flood into his mind. He sees scenes from her childhood, where Thale was cared for by an old man. Then the memories shift to Thale as she grows up, standing in a forest enchanted by an echoing wail. But the old man drags her back to the basement, taking something from her while explaining that something else is calling her. To ensure she won't be found again, he eventually submerges Thale in a bathtub.
Lugna dig nu. Så där ja. Jag vet att du vill åka efter. Jag vet att de kallar på dig, men inte här nere.
Meanwhile, Leo, who is in the forest, receives a call informing him that Einar and his team's arrival will be delayed. He hears the sound of branches snapping and becomes certain that someone or something is silently stalking him. Back to Elvis, who is now in the basement room playing a decades-old tape, while Thale curiously examines a mask. Elvis listens to the old man on the recording, describing how he took something from Thale and stored it to keep her untraceable. Elvis eyes the mini fridge warily, summoning the courage to open it, and is shocked by what he finds inside. Shortly afterward, Leo returns with bread and water, and Elvis directs him to the mini fridge. As before, Leo reacts indifferently and closes it, sealing something inside, a tail. While Thale enjoys the bread, Elvis excuses himself to use the restroom, unaware that something is watching him from the bushes. Suddenly, Leo experiences a choking sensation, ignoring Elvis's chatter. Whatever it was, he suddenly feels better and realizes Thale has been watching him closely. She approaches and gently touches him, seeming to calm him. Outside the cabin, something mysterious continues to lurk, moving closer with an unknown intent. Back inside, Elvis gives Thale some water, and he and Leo keep an eye on her. When a phone rings, they ignore it. Together, they speculate about the tale, wondering if it belongs to Thale but unable to confirm. Frustrated by Einar's delay, they start guessing Thale's age, leading to a misunderstanding where Elvis estimates Thale is around 25, while Leo was actually asking about Elin, Elvis's adopted niece who is turning 5 in November. Surprisingly, this realization dawns that Elvis is now effectively a father figure. In a quiet moment, Leo admits that he has lung cancer, which shocks and disappoints Elvis, who's upset that Leo has kept this to himself. The two exchange some light-hearted jabs, diffusing the tension. Suddenly, Thale seems disturbed, approaching a window and staring outside. She follows something she senses around the cabin, leading Elvis to think Einar and his team might have arrived. Noticing a rapid movement outside, Thale grows fearful and chains the door shut. As she backs away, Leo moves closer to the door, hearing slow footsteps. Suddenly, he's startled as the door is forcefully rammed. To protect themselves, Elvis attempts to pull something to block the door, but when that fails, he and Leo resort to holding the door closed with their combined weight until they catch the smell of gas. Elvis, struggling to hold on, crawls closer to Thale and touches her leg, which pulls him into a vision of her memories. In these memories, a young Thale screams on a bed as she undergoes experiments. He also sees a memory of the old man taking Thale to the forest during winter. The old man almost loses Thale, not because of the cold, but because of another creature. Thale had wandered deep into the forest, drawn by an echoing wail, until another creature appeared. This is why Thale was hidden away in the basement. Elvis briefly regains awareness and sees armed men breaking into the room. The scene then shifts back to a memory, where the old man expresses regret, realizing he wasn't truly a good person as he thought. The experiments he conducted were essentially torturing Thale. He explains that Thale has always understood that she was different from humans and had abilities they couldn't fathom, like reviving dead plants. While keeping Thale in captivity brought the old man happiness, he also felt sadness, realizing Thale's true life belonged in the forest with her tailed sisters. He admits that without him, Thale wouldn't have survived as a baby. Sometime later, Elvis wakes up with his head covered by a black cloth, tied to a chair in the middle of the forest. Armed guards are stationed around him, and a man named Vitkled explains that the gas will make his mouth dry, offering him something to drink. In their conversation, Vitkled reveals that he works for someone seeking unique women like Thale. He pressures Elvis to admit to Thale's existence, but Elvis gives no response. As they talk further, it becomes clear that Thale is not human. Vitkled explains that while humans banded together to survive, a group known as They separated themselves, evolving differently with unique characteristics. These deviants, as Vitkled calls them, live and adapt in the wild, developing a unique metabolism and radiating energy that is stronger than that of humans. Because this energy can be detected, Vitkled believes that Thale is precisely who they have been searching for. The scene shifts back to the cabin, where armed men search for Thale using a special device. The device emits beeps, indicating that Thale is nearby, but they haven't managed to find her yet. Vitkled, convinced that Elvis knows something, threatens to put something in his drink to force a confession. When Elvis remains silent, Vitkled pretends to sympathize, saying he understands it might be difficult to talk because Thale likely used her special abilities to create empathy, influencing people to protect her. Back in the cabin, it's revealed that Thale has been hiding in the bathtub. She slowly emerges, removing her mask, and glares sharply at the armed men before launching a swift, deadly attack. At the same time, Vitkled receives a call meant to report on Thale's tail, but gunshots in the background make him wary. He orders the guards stationed around the cabin to enter and assist. Thale slips away as the armed forces arrive, only to find their comrades eliminated. Thale launches another surprise assault, this time wielding a horseshoe, and brutally finishes them off. When additional troops enter, they find no trace of her. Back in the forest, Vitkled, running out of patience, points his weapon at Leo, who is also tied to a chair with his head covered. Just before he can pull the trigger, an explosion suddenly erupts at the cabin. Vitkled tries to contact his men but fails. Strange wailing sounds echo around them, and shadowy figures move among the trees. Preparing himself, Vitkled assumes it's Thale and raises his weapon to investigate, threatening to kill Elvis in the process. But it's not Thale who appears, it's her sisters who quickly overpower and kill Vitkled. The creatures snarl briefly at Elvis and Leo, but leave without harming them. As the danger subsides, Elvis calls out to Leo, who senses something approaching, and he glimpses Thale standing before him. Sometime later, Elvis and Leo are at the police station, where an officer types up a report linking the events at the cabin to a forest creature known as Hulda. The scene then shifts to a park where Leo meets up with Elvis. They discuss Leo's illness, and Leo reveals that it seems to have miraculously vanished. His cancer is completely gone, and even the doctors can't explain it. Noticing that Elvis is still unemployed, Leo invites him to work together on a job cleaning up after an elderly woman's death. Though initially repulsed, Elvis laughs and agrees. Leo hands him some cash as an advance, explaining that it's not for Elvis but for Elin. The film closes with a shot of Thale waking up in a meadow. She soon finds her kind and follows them as they run into the forest. An old man's voice narrates a final message about how lucky one is to have family or friends to grow up with and protect one another. He hopes that one day Thale will experience the same, thanking her and apologizing for everything he did. And that's it for the story series of this film. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to support this channel by subscribe, like and share. See you in the next video. Goodbye.